Uh, Hi. Lelouch Lamperouge from Code Geass is a pretty great main character. Uh, and I think people agree. Um, However, I could see maybe some people not liking Lelouch the most. He could be considered an unlikable main character. However, I think what makes the writing Code Geass so brilliant is Lelouch isn't necessarily meant. In fact, he's not meant to be a character that you root for all of the time. At least that's how it really comes across to me. I feel like Code Geass challenges people in a really good way, though, not in a overly complicated, stressful, boring way. Code Geass has a main character who you're supposed to, I think, sympathize with and understand where he's coming from, but you're not supposed to think that everything he does is great because he does some things that aren't so great. However, he almost always has an understandable reasoning behind what he does, and that doesn't mean that you're supposed to go, well, I'm still rooting for him, or I still think that's the right thing to do. I think it's kind of this very interesting challenge where you're supposed to kind of think, well, I understand why you're doing that, but you really shouldn't be doing that. Or yeah, technically you got stuff done, but there were some morality problems broken. Lelouch seems to be self-aware about that. He seems to understand that he's kind of sacrificing his morality and the chance of people remembering him as a good person in order to accomplish his mission. And that's very fascinating. It's weird how he's technically doing bad things in a sacrifice way, in the sense that he is doing these things and he knows that some of those things are wrong or at least questionable, but he really wants to make things better for the world and he's willing to do some not so good things to make it happen. And that's a fascinating conflict and a very interesting situation for him to go on. So, because of that, I think of Lelouch as one of the most interesting main characters of all time. And really, there's a lot of interesting things to think about. He is a complicated person, and he has very interesting goals and missions to go on. He's not like other main characters. He's something very, very different. And he has an amazing design, one of the greatest designs of a main character, a very memorable voice, a very cool costume, kind of a superhero costume, and that's another fascinating thing. Is Lelouch a superhero? Is he a supervillain? Is he an anti-hero? Is he... What is Lelouch? Well, it's hard to really pinpoint and consider Lelouch just one thing. He's multiple things, which is ironic because he's called Zero, but he's actually lots of different things. It's hard to give him a specific main identity. But whatever Lelouch is, I know that he's great. He's fascinating. He's a really special main character, one of the more interesting ones. And despite all that he goes through and some of the questionable things he does, he is still somewhat likable and at least a character that I want to see win, but also be called out on some of the not so good things he does. But a fascinating main character, one of the most interesting main characters that there's been in anime and in fiction. I'm going that far. I mean, Code Geass just is that good, and Lelouch just is that great and fascinating and amazing of a character that those things deserve to be said. He really does something special. He deserves a lot more attention and love, and we need to remember Lelouch is one of the greatest anime protagonists of all time. That needs to happen.